Okay, good day everyone. Welcome to our lesson in Introduction to Criminology. Now, in this video, I'm going to make, I think, two parts. Hopefully, just two parts because I'm trying to finish our coverage before the end of December so that you will not face multiple exams this January. Kasi January, final exams natin, I think it's third week. So, in all my subjects, I'm trying to alternate to conduct exams two or a week before. Okay. So for today, we're going to talk about penology. Now, penology versus correction. So there are some times that these terms are being interchangeably used. So do you think penology is the same with correction? But no. Penology is a study of punishment for crime or of criminal offenders. Now, study of punishment. It includes the study of control and prevention of crime through punishment of criminal offenders. So, the word study is present, okay? The term is derived from the Latin word pena, which means pain or suffering. So, it's clear that the logi in penology refers to study. Now, in correction is a branch of the CGS concerned with the custody, supervision, and rehabilitation of criminal offenders. It is that field of criminal justice administration which utilizes or uses the body of knowledge and practices of the government and the society in general involving the process of handling individuals which have been convicted of offenses for purposes of crime prevention and control. So correction really um refers to the application of that body of knowledge of the result of the study of penology. Okay? So penology is a study, parang yung utak, and correction naman yung kamay, yung application. Now, the early forms of prisons, we really have to talk about this kasi kasali ito sa board exam. So, I'm going to introduce you these things as part of this subject. So, gauls or jails is the pretrial detention facilities operated by the English sheriff in England. Okay, but before that, meron pa talaga mas earlier. It is called gulag. So, it is a very prehistoric looking jail na kahoy lang yung ginagamit, walang walang atip. Oh, atip ba yun sa Tagalog? Atop? Okay. So, para lang mga kawayan na ano, na ano ba ito? Yung gitugsok sa yuta, sa lupa. So, tapos yung prisoner is of course nasa loob. Kasi yung gulag was originally used for um yung parang trash bin kung saan tinatambak yung mga basura natin. Well, later on, in some books kasi, hindi kasi present yung gulag. But gulag really does exist even until now, especially dun sa Russia. Okay, as a form of punishment kasi malamig doon sa Russia. Now, next form of prison is the galleys. Long, low, narrow, single-deck ships propelled by sails, usually rowed by criminals, a type of ship used for transportation of criminals in the 16th century. Now, galleys were being used um, as a detention facility kasi mga sira na. Okay? They were not used if the boat is not, if the ship is not, is still functioning. So, hulks, decrepit transport former warships used to house prisoners in the 18th and 19th century These were abandoned warships converted into prisons as means of relieving congestion of prisoners. They were also called floating hells. Now, it referred floating hells kasi, of course, mainit talaga. This was described once in a book that, ano, kahit sira na yung boat, meron pa rin yung, they have to let other parts of the boat keep functioning through coal. So, medyo talaga mainit talaga doon sa ilalim. Now, Maritime Prison is one of the early Roman places of confinement which is built under the main sewer of Rome. Kasi dati, hindi pa masyadong interested yung mga tao about, let's say, reformation, but medyo focus sila sa punishment. So, the main sewer is hindi katulad ng mga sewers natin ngayon na dinadaluyan ng tubig. But ang sewers nila dati is dinadaluyan ng tae. Yes, mabaho. So, to be put there even just for a week be would make you feel very, very weak. Magkakasakit ka pa. Now, next is the most popular workhouse as the Bridewell Workhouse was the Bridewell Workhouse in London, which was built for the employment and housing of English prisoners. Now, workhouse means literally. So, you have to work in that place. So, dati pa kasi wala pang mga rights yung prisoners such as if a prisoner is going to offer some labor, so meron siyang sahod, dati wala pa yan. So, parang may program na lang talaga yung mga prisoners dati that, let's say, 3 times a week, they have to do this, they have to do that, they have to work like this, especially sa mining dati. So, being a prisoner puts you in an advantage. Now, next is the Walnut Street Jail. Originally constructed as a detention jail in Philadelphia. So, detention lang muna. It was converted into a state prison and became the first American penitentiary. Kasi nakita nila na it was a bit promising na maging isang state prison talaga. Now, these three are one of the earliest prisons. Pero meron pang isa doon sa London. But basically, dati kasi, prisoners were not given importance. Kaya, whatever comes, kung ano yung mga bakanteng buildings, yung pwedeng i- i-separate yung prisoner sa hindi prisoner, uh, they make use of it. Hanggang sa it just turned out that through the years, nakita nila na it's promising. So, kaya ginawa nilang permanent. And that is how most of these jails become into existence. Okay? Now, talking about punishment, it is the infliction or imposition of a penalty as retribution for an offense. It could be, let's say, physical or psychological, or just simply taking away of a privilege. Okay, that is a form of punishment already. So, that imposition of a penalty is a punishment. Ancient forms of punishment. Now, first, death penalty, affected by burning, beheading, hanging, breaking at the wheels, pillory, and other forms of medieval execution. So, dati ito. So, as of now, limited lang yung mga countries na gumagawa pa rin ng death penalty such as, I think, Saudi. Saudi is one. Pero for um, certain crimes only. Now, next is physical torture. Affected by maiming, okay, tutusukin ka, mutilation, puputulan ka ng part sa katawan, whipping, paglatigo, and other inhumane or barbaric forms of inflicting pain. Third is social degradation, okay, putting the offender into shame or humiliation, especially in public. This is done in public. Banishment or exile, the sending or putting away of an offender which was carried out either by prohibition against coming into a specified territory such as an island to where the offender has been removed. Now, banishment, ito yung pinapalayas ka sa isang lugar. You are not allowed to go to that place. While sa exile naman is you are not allowed to go outside of a certain place. Katulad ni Rizal. Rizal was exiled in Dapitan City. So, he was not allowed outside of that area, dun sa Rizal Park. Kaya nga sikat. Pero, it was unwritten on some history books, but of course, it was spoken by some old people in Dapitan City that um, Jose Rizal did really broke his exile. Umalis siya kasi isa siyang doktor and he traveled, nag-ano siya, what we call this, ano ba yun? Nag-backdoor doon siya sa dagat dumaan at nag-port doon sa Oroquieta because meron kasing isang mayaman doon na nag-house sa kanya and all the patients all over Oroquieta pumipila doon. And sadly, nahuli siya, yung kung sino yung nag-house at ibinitay. So, that was a form of death penalty by going against the laws of Spanish during that time. So, during that time, it was just, what you call this, normal. Itong mga punishments na ito. Fifth is other similar forms of punishment like transportation and slavery. Now, this is easily understood, so I know you can easily understand it. Early forms of prison discipline. First is hard labor, productive works. So, gagamitin ka ng para magtrabaho. Deprivation of everything except the bare essentials of existence. So, okay, what do you need to exist? Food, water, I think that's only it. So, other else, wala na, hindi na bibigay sa'yo. So, that's a form of deprivation. Monotony, giving the same food that is off diet or requiring the prisoner to perform drab or boring daily routine. Ouch. Uniformity, we treat the prisoners alike. The fault of one is the fault of all. So, parang ROTC pala ito. So, next is mass movement. Mass living in cell blocks, mass eating, mass recreation, mass bathing. So, parang konti lang. So, yung space. Sabay-sabay tayo. Next is degradation. Uttering insulting words or languages on the part of prison staff to the prisoners to degrade or break the confidence of prisoners. So, using insulting words. Corporal punishment. Imposing brutal punishment or employing physical force to intimidate a delinquent inmate. So, physical contact na. Isolation or solitary confinement, non-communication, limited news, the lone wolf. So, you are going to be separated. So, usually dito kapag uh, ano to sa Tagalog, Bartolina. So, wala kang sunlight. So, eto yung dati. But, hindi na ito applicable ngayon itong hard labor, of course, kapag yung prisoner is may labor, of course, may sweldo din sila. Deprivation of everything. Okay, bawal na ito sa human rights. Monotony. Giving the same food. Wala namang nakalagay na hindi dapat ibigay yung mga same food. So, I think this still works. Uniformity. We treat the prisoners alike. The fault of one is fault of all. So, depending on some cases, we can apply this kahit nga sa ROTC, di ba? Mass movement, mass living in cell blocks now. Eto, hindi na ito form of punishment karon. Parang new normal na sa kanila ito. Kasi sa kakulangan ng space, so they really have to live together. So, pare, mahal mo daw ako. Yabag man. Okay, next is degradation. So, usually nangyayari ito, but jail card should be what do you call this? Careful. Corporal punishment, imposing brutal punishment or employing physical force to intimidate. Okay, the law allows this para isa ito sa mga exception kapag grabe talaga yung resistance yung inmate. Saka sa isolation or solitary confinement. So, in law, hindi talaga allowed ito. But yung law din mismo ang nagsabi na if wala na talaga, parang last last option ito, yung ilagay sa pamilya yung isang inmate. Okay? The contemporary forms of punishment. The modern forms of punishment, present forms of punishment. First is prison. Putting the offender in prison for the purpose of protecting the public against criminal activities, and at the same time rehabilitating the prisoners by requiring them to undergo institutional treatment programs. Okay, so prisons. Parole, conditional release of a prisoner after serving part of his or her sentence in prison for the purpose of gradually reintroducing him or her to free life under the guidance and supervision of a parole officer. So, under ito sa non-institutional correction. Probation, a disposition whereby a defendant after conviction of an offense, the penalty of which does not exceed 6 years imprisonment, is released subject to the conditions imposed by a releasing court and under the supervision of a probation officer. Next is fine, an amount given as a compensation for a criminal act. Destierro, the penalty of banishing a person from the place where he committed a crime, prohibiting him to get near or enter the 25-kilometer perimeter. So, para ring banishment ito, depending on the judge. So, purposes of punishment. Retribution. The punishment should be provided by the state whose sanction is violated to afford the society or the individual the opportunity of imposing upon the offender suitable punishment as might be enforced. Offenders should be punished because they deserve it. So, retribution talks about punishment kasi may kasalanan sila. Now, expiation or atonement, it is punishment in the form of group vengeance where the purpose is to appease the offended public or group, to appease, to calm, para hindi magkagulo. Okay? So, retribution talks about punishment kasi naka-violate ka. Expiation talks about punishment para kumalma yung offended party or group. Next is deterrence. Punishment gives lesson to the offender by showing to the others what would happen to them if they violate the law. Punishment is imposed to warn potential offenders that they cannot afford to do what the offender has done. So, deterrence talks about yung parang prevention din, crime prevention. Kasi yung punishment na ibinigay mo sa isang offender will serve as a lesson to others na if you're going if we are going to commit a crime, so ito pala yung this is what waits for us. So, if kapag harsh yung punishment, grabe yung deterrence. But that does not apply always. Okay, next is incapacitation and protection. The public will be protected if the offender is being held in conditions where he cannot harm others, especially the public. Punishment is affected by placing offenders in prison so that society will be insured from further criminal depredations of criminals. So, ano ito? Segregation. Sineseparate yung criminals sa hindi criminals. Okay? Incapacitation. Para hindi makagalaw yung criminal sa mga hindi criminals. Okay? Next is reformation or rehabilitation. It is the establishment of the usefulness and responsibility of the offender. The society's interest can be better served by helping the prisoner to become law-abiding citizens and productive upon his return to the community by requiring him to undergo intensive program of rehabilitation in prison. So, reformation, parang i iibahin mo yung form niya. So, form refers to personality or character para maging isang useful, law-abiding citizen siya. Useful siya sa society. Okay, I think these five are the purposes of punishment. Now, here are the two branches of correction. Now, what is penology? Penology is a study, while correction is the application of that study. Okay, mm, first is institutional correction, next is non-institutional correction. So, institutional correction is the correction or the application of penology inside a building or an institution. While sa non, of course, outside. So, inside, outside. And close open lang, no? So, institutional correction, ito yung kanyang coverages. Coverages, may, oh yeah. So, it talks about jails, prisons, and the boring processes and boring procedures in handling inmates from reception until release. Though it is boring, so but it it's what you call it, it's very important to learn about this because lumalabas ito sa board exam. And according to our new top-notcher, si Mandawi, grabe talaga yung focus last exam tungkol sa correction. Okay? So, jails, ito yung temporary prisons. Oh, not really temporary. Yes, it is for temporary and yung sa mga low term, yung mga mababa lang, I think below 3 years, yung imprisonment. Yung prisons is above 3 years. Okay? And process and procedures sa mula sa pagpasok ng inmate hanggang sa kanyang paglabas, kung ano yung mga dapat gawin, mga do's and don'ts ng isang inmate at ng isang jail guard or prison guard. Now, next is the non-institutional correction. Right? This talks about this pardon, amnesty, commutation, reprieve, probation, parole. Now, short definitions. Pardon is an executive clemency of the president. So, president lang ang pwede makapardon. Dalawa ito. Absolute pardon, totally mawawala yung punishment mo. Then, conditional pardon is yung, of course, may condition. Kapag lumabag ka sa condition na yon, balik ka sa kulungan. Okay, amnesty is parang this is given by the Congress and is usually given to those um, army or police na nag-attempt ng kudita. I think si Trillanes na nabigyan din ata yan ng amnesty. And the difference between pardon and amnesty is sa pardon yung presidente. Yung ang nagbibigay sa amnesty ay ang Congress. Kailangan ng two-thirds votes ng Congress. So, dito sa pardon, meron kang record na nakakommit ka ng crime. Kaso lang, um, you are forgiven. Dito sa amnesty, parang totally talaga na hindi nangyari. It will not be put into record that you have done that crime. So, in a sense, mas grabe talaga mas powerful yung amnesty. So, commutation. Commutation is yung pagbaba ng sentensya mo. So, I think this is also um, given by the president. But I think some other privileges like good conduct time allowance or the GCTA is part of the commutation of sentence kasi bumababa din siya ng sentence. Okay? Now, etong reprieve. So, this is given by the president to those who are in death row. Yung naghihintay na lang ng ilang months or ilang years, tapos ibibitay na. So, though it is not applicable in our country, yung bitay, but it was once applicable before. So, that power stayed to the president, and the purpose of it is to give enough time to investigate in a person's case. Kasi sayang naman kung mabitay siya tapos inosente pa lang siya. For some, okay lang yon. It's only a life. It's only a single life. But our laws does not devalue a person's life. Kasi yung law natin is designed as to, ano, as to avoid the imprisonment of a single innocent person. Now, next is the probation. Now, probation is the service of sentence of yung nabigyan ng hatol na criminal. They will serve their sentence outside the institution. Ito yung probation. But meron itong, of course, if you are, mga qualifications. If you are not qualified, you cannot apply for probation. Okay, first, qualification is dapat yung crime mo is hindi lalampas na 6 years. Second, dapat hindi ka nahatulan ng final judgment with a punishment more than, I think, 6 months ata yun or 1 year or 2 months. Makakadaan din kayo nito sa pagdating nyo third year. But basically, probation at saka parole is the service of sentence outside the institution. So, yung probation, the moment na nahatulan ka ng guilty, you can apply for probation kapag qualified ka. Now, dito naman sa parole, you cannot apply after the final judgment. You can only apply if you have served the minimum sentence. Kasi yung sentence, yung how many years ka makukulong, meron yung minimum at saka maximum. And kapag na-serve mo na yung minimum, you can apply for parole. If it is approved, then you will continue to serve your sentence outside the institution. Of course, with restrictions and with rules. Okay? So, I think that's it. So, keep on studying. Okay? I will try my best na I think nasabi ko na sa simula na hanggang December lang tayo. So, para ma-relax din naman kayo because I know you are tired and I am so tired also. So I have other things to focus also, like sa thesis. So thank you for understanding and see you next time. Bye bye.